3,000 people are crushed under thousands of tons of stone. The massive pillars supporting the Temple of Dagon are cracking, giving way, and bringing the entire structure down in a catastrophic cloud of dust. And the man who pulled those pillars down dies right alongside his enemies. That violent end belongs to Samson. He is a man infamous for breaking his vows, yielding to his worst impulses, and destroying his own life. Yet, against all logical expectations, he is remembered today as a spiritual hero. A recent deep dive Bible study into Judges chapter 16 brings this exact tension to the surface. It challenges everything we think we know about his story, forcing us to reevaluate his legacy. To accurately understand Samson, we have to stop analyzing his superhuman physical strength. Instead, we have to confront a massive theological contradiction regarding his eternal salvation. The contradiction starts in the book of Hebrews, specifically chapter 11. Theologians universally recognize this chapter as the Bible's ultimate hall of faith. This timeline maps out the undisputed heavyweights of biblical history. You have foundational figures like Abraham, Moses, and David, individuals whose trust shaped human events. But then the lineage rapidly expands, and we find an anomaly. Samson is officially inserted alongside these giants. The Bible study raises a sharp point here. We spend so much time analyzing Samson's weaknesses, pointing fingers at his obvious, catastrophic sins. We completely miss the more important question: how did a man who lost absolutely everything on earth still manage to secure his salvation? Finding his name in that specific list forces us to reconsider the rules of redemption and redefine what actually qualifies someone as righteous in the eyes of God. Before we look at his redemption, we have to look honestly at his failures. Samson offended both man and God. He ignored his sacred Nazirite vows, surrendered his holy secret to Delilah, and allowed his personal lusts to override his divine calling. We can visualize the immediate consequence of those choices right here. A perfectly structured, tranquil landscape is suddenly fractured by deep, jagged fissures. Samson completely destroyed his own earthly peace. The collapse of Samson's earthly peace serves as a precursor to a far more dangerous consequence. He had placed his eternal salvation in severe jeopardy. The study delivers a stark, timeless warning for us today. Giving in to worldly temptations doesn't happen in a vacuum. It rapidly erodes your spiritual foundations, leaving you entirely vulnerable. By the time his enemies gouged out his eyes and bound him in bronze chains, the damage was already done. His physical blindness and his literal imprisonment were merely the outward, visible results of his severe internal spiritual decay. This brings us to his absolute lowest point. Samson is trapped, humiliated, and grinding grain in a subterranean Philistine prison. A single stark beam of harsh light piercing through the dark is his only connection to the outside world. But right here, in the dark, the narrative turns. He speaks his final, desperate prayer, recorded in Judges 16:28. Look at this typography layout isolating the key translated words from that verse. He cries out, "Lord, God," and asks him to remember. He uses a formal, structural acknowledgement of Jehovah. Samson's specific choice of words moves past a simple request for physical strength and signals a total resubmission to God's ultimate authority. This brief, desperate cry proves something vital. Even in his darkest, most humiliating moment of defeat, his underlying belief in God remained entirely intact. This brings us back to the core realization of our Bible study. Samson is absolutely not declared righteous because he lived a flawless life. The evidence clearly proves he didn't. Instead, he falls perfectly into the theological category of being declared righteous by faith. This visual logic equation maps out exactly how divine grace interacts with human failure. You have grace acting as the massive base layer, but it requires the variable of human faith to connect and output salvation. As you can see with this glowing thread, his faith was violently tested and stretched under extreme tension by his own terrible choices, but it held firm. It never snapped. Enduring faith requires an ultimate willingness to turn back to the Creator, regardless of the severity or the shame of prior failures. This is the actionable lesson. True faith is not defined by a perfect track record of avoiding every pitfall in life. No matter how far you have strayed or how completely your life has collapsed, refusing to let go of God and reaching out in final, enduring faith is the true foundation of eternal salvation.